Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Xiaolin Perspectives. And today we're going to be discussing episode 18 of Xiaolin Showdown, Pandatown. And this episode opens with the Xiaolin monks as they're training in their respective elements. We see it actually starting with Raimundo as he's in a crevice and he's basically getting catapulted out by Clay, who's trying to use his earth element to, move the earth to get him out, which he does. Though he sends Raimundo flying, much to the Dragon of Wind's chagrin. However, when it gets to Raimundo's turn, well, he's kind of getting the pressure put on him, since he has to use his element to move one of his teammates to a single platform in the middle of a molten lake of lava. Yeah, no one really wants to volunteer for that, and Omi says that the reason why no one wants to is partially because Raimundo is still the only one of the group who has not become a Xiaolin apprentice yet, so they're all a little bit afraid of his skills. This results in Master Feng volunteering him for the job. Unfortunately, while this is clearly kind of a punishment for him mocking Raimundo, Omi doesn't make the job any easier, as while Raimundo is trying to focus and get in the right mindset in order to, control the fucking wind, Omi keeps getting in his face, keeps talking in his ear, telling him he's got to concentrate and focus, which just makes Raimundo more and more annoyed, and so while Raimundo does eventually tell Omi to knock it the hell off, well, it doesn't really last, as Omi takes the Shroud of Shadows, goes invisible, and then before Raimundo can use his element to lift him out onto the single platform, well, Omi immediately just pops in, which scares Raimundo so much that he ends up pushing Omi back with the wind. Thankfully, Omi doesn't end up getting stir-fried, thanks to Clay's intervention. But yeah, the test is considered a failure. Though thankfully Master Feng doesn't actually tell Raimundo you failed, he actually says it was a good first try and that they'll try again later. Which, yeah, regardless of that, Raimundo does get annoyed because it was kind of Omi's fault that he failed. Although, for reasons I don't understand, Omi is really laying it on thick that Raimundo is just not there yet because he's not a Xiaolin apprentice and that one day he will be competent. Yeah, Omi's being kind of an ass in this episode. But all that's really kind of put on hold as Kimiko pulls up her PDA and she ends up finding a police bulletin. Mainly because in Hong Kong, there have been a series of robberies going on where the robbers seem to be displaying powers associated with Shen Gong Wu. With Kimiko pulling up a security camera footage of two of these robbers as they use the Fist of Tebigong and the Serpent's Tail to break into a convenience store, which confused the Xiaolin monks because those Shen Gong Wu are supposed to be in the hands of Jack Spicer, and yet why would he be using them to just, rob people? As such, the Xiaolin monks make it their priority to go to Hong Kong to see what the hell's going on. But meanwhile, with Jack Spicer, we see him in the process of building a new robot, which is supposed to be what looks like a butler kind of robot that's called the Yes Bot, whose job is literally just to be Jack Spicer's yes man and then serve him snacks. However, as he's doing this, Wuya pops up and thinks that Jack is wasting his time and that he should be training with the Shen Gong Wu, with Wuya listing a bunch of Shen Gong Wu that she thinks that he needs to practice with, but Jack suddenly gets a little wary and says that he doesn't need to worry about those, he practiced with them when she was asleep, or he has them out clean, etc. But what Wuya insists that Jack at least practice with one of the Shen Gong Wu and goes to the cabinet where they keep them, but Jack gets a bit defensive as he tries to keep Wuya out. Of course, since Wuya's a ghost, she just goes right into the cabinet, and when she emerges, she's not exactly happy because it turns out the cabinet's empty. So yeah, what happened to Jack's Shen Gong Wu? He traded him! So you see, Jack Spicer apparently used up his funds. After building all of his robots, he needed a bit more money to continue building them. And well, apparently when you need money in the criminal underworld, there is one place you can go that's guaranteed to get you a buttload of cash if you can give the right collateral. And that is the head of Hong Kong's underground criminal empire, Panda Bubba. And yeah, despite his name kind of sounding stupid, Panda Bubba ain't no one's slouch, as, well, he gets his name Panda Bubba because, basically, he looks like a panda. He has sharp nails, he's got white and black clothes, he's got little circles around his eyes and what looks like a kind of panda nose, and his hair even looks like panda ears, but he's no one you want to screw with, as he's big, burly, eventually has a deep voice, and just from seeing him, he looks very intimidating, and apparently Jack went to him to get a loan, and he used the Shen Gong Wu as collateral, pretty much giving them all over to Panda Bubba and getting all the money he needed. However, Jack thinks that he's in the clear with all this because Panda Bubba doesn't know that the Shen Gong Wu are Shen Gong Wu. He just thinks that they're old antiques that are probably worth a fortune or something. And Jack says that he at least kept one Shen Gong Wu as he shows off the monkey staff, but that still doesn't really make up for the fact that he traded away the Shen Gong Wu. But Jack says that he has a solution for it. He'll just use the monkey staff, break into Panda Bubba's compound, and then steal them all back, and it'll be a win-win. Wuya, of course, thinks that Jack is an idiot, but she kind of has to go along with his plan anyway, and as such, Jack and Wuya make their way to Hong Kong so Jack can steal back his Shen Gong Wu. In the meantime, the Xiaolin monks arrive at Hong Kong, and sure enough, it doesn't really take them that long in order to find the people who were using the Shen Gong Wu. And unfortunately, even though they all try to put in their best efforts, they can't really get them. Or at the very least, Raimundo tries, as he uses the Falcon's Eye to catch one of the bank robbers as he's using the serpent's tail to fly through buildings, and when Raimundo tries to catch him, the guy just goes right through him, which results in Omi chastising Raimundo again by saying, I would have grabbed the serpent's tail, but I guess that's only something you would learn if you were an apprentice, which again, fuck you, Omi. Fuck you. As such, with the bad guys essentially gotten away, the Xiaolin warriors wonder why Jack would be employing someone like this as his new minion, only for an old man to come up and say that those people apparently were working for Panda Bubba. So yeah, it's clear Panda Bubba has already figured out that these antiques that he has have some kind of power to them. And unfortunately, Jack learns this as well, as he ends up using the monkey staff to break into Panda Bubba's mansion, and while he does find the vault where Panda Bubba is keeping the remaining Shen Gong Wu, well, after he gets through Panda Bubba's security and tries to grab at them, he gets ambushed by Panda Bubba and the two minions who were using the Shen Gong Wu. And when Jack tries to defend himself, Panda Bubba lets him know that he's not happy to see Jack because Jack Spicer lied to him. And as for how Panda Bubba figured out that the Shen Gong Wu had all these mystical powers, turns out Jack had a cheat sheet, and he accidentally left it in the left Jetbutsu. As such, through the cheat sheet, Panda Bubba learned everything about the Shen Gong Wu, and he's been using them ever since. As such, Jack is trying to find a way out of this, and he tells Panda Bubba that maybe they could do another trade. After all, yeah, Panda Bubba has Jack's Shen Gong Wu, but there are even more Shen Gong Wu that he could get his hands on, resulting in Jack kind of saving his own hide by offering him the Xiaolin warriors. Now, we don't end up seeing that part, but it's clear that that's what he means, especially since the Xiaolin monks, armed with the knowledge that that old man gave them, end up storming Panda Bubba's compound as well, but before they can even get inside, Jack meets up with them and tells them that he's here to get his stuff back too, that Panda Bubba stole from him as well, and that he needs the Xiaolin monks' help because he knows a secret passageway into the mansion, and that they could all go in, then he could split Jack's Wu right down the middle. Yeah, it's obviously a trap, but for some reason, Raimundo is the only one that buys it, as the other Xiaolin monks think, well, we don't really have any other choice now, do we? We should probably go in and listen to Jack, and yeah, they're just being idiots. And to try and earn their trust, Jack hands over the monkey staff, and they even use the Falcon's Eye to check into Panda Bubba's mansion and see that it's filled to the rim with people with Shen Gong Wu, which also shows one guy with a Sun-Chi lantern, which means Jack stole that during the Shard of Lightning incident, so smart, I guess. My point is this. Raimundo thinks this is all a load of crock, but the other Xiaolin monks want to follow Jack through the secret hiding space. As such, Raimundo pretty much tells them all to fuck off, they can do whatever the hell they want, he's gonna find his own way in, as he jumps into the compound and ends up beating up one of the guards. As such, the other monks go with Jack, and they do end up finding a servant's entrance outside the mansion. However, upon going through, they immediately realize that they probably walked into a trap, because it's a little too quiet, and sure enough, once the entrance door closes, the cavern that they're in gets lit up with the Star Nabi, showing up Panda Bubba and his two goons again. And as such, yeah, the Xiaolin monks realize they walked into a trap. And while they do put up a good fight against Panda Bubba and his goons, sadly, Panda Bubba turns the Tangle Web Comb on them, and they all get dispatched rather easily. And unfortunately for Jack, Panda Bubba betrays him as well, as he gets him wrapped up as well. As such, with everyone now disarmed and trapped, he tells his two goons to head to the Xiaolin Temple and get the remaining Shen Gong Wu. Thankfully, however, as all this was happening, Raimundo did manage to find his way into the mansion, and he did see all this go down in the shadows, even managing to grab Dojo before Panda Bubba could get him. As such, with his friends captured, Raimundo and Dojo make a hasty retreat back to the temple, and they end up telling Master Feng that Panda Bubba's goons are on his way. As such, while Master Feng wants to tell the elder monks about all this, Raimundo says that that he doesn't need to, that Raimundo has a plan. And while at first it looks like that Master Feng yeah. Well, at first it looks like Master Feng will be objecting to whatever Raimundo has to say. Raimundo cuts him off and tells him that he knows that people don't really trust him, but he's got to earn his way back, and and that means that they have to sometimes rely on him. Only for Master Feng to reveal that he wasn't planning on shooting Raimundo down. He actually does trust Raimundo, and since Raimundo is the most knowledgeable of the situation right now, he'll take his judgment, right? He'll listen to whatever Raimundo has to say, which, again, I like that, and I'll get to my thought, and I'll talk about that when I get to my thoughts on the episode. Either way, Panda Bubba's goons arrive on the Longi kite, and they manage to get into the vault, which is wide open for them. As such, they go down, and sure enough, Raimundo is there waiting for them, and so Raimundo gets into a little tussle with Panda Bubba's goons, and while he seems to be doing alright, sadly things don't go in his favor as one of the goons pulls out the Ring of the Nine Dragons and splits himself apart, with the majority of his copies holding Raimundo down, while one of them and the other goon go down to the vault to get the remaining Shen Gong Wu. So yeah, it looks like the plan failed. As such, they get the Hall and bring the Hall and Raimundo back to Panda Bubba, who is just in a warehouse by the dock somewhere. And so after presenting the bag of supposed Shen Gong Wu to Panda Bubba, they throw Raimundo into a back room with the other Xiaolin monks. Unfortunately for Panda Bubba, this was actually part of the plan. For you see, when Panda Bubba and his goons go through the sack of Shen Gong Wu, all they find is crap, as in there they find a random stick, a rock, and a pair of tennis shoes, and Panda Bubba realizes, wait, these aren't really Shen Gong Wu. And yeah, it turns out that this was all part of Raimundo's plan. He essentially laid out a trap, made it look like that the vault was wide open, put up enough of a fight to make it look convincing, and allowed himself to be captured with a bag full of Shen Gong Wu that he had hidden with the Shroud of Shadows, alongside Dojo, who immediately frees Raimundo and the other Xiaolin monks. As such, with them all free, they all arm themselves with Shen Gong Wu and burst out of the room ready to take on Panda Bubba and his goons. In the meantime, Jack Spicer, who was tied up on the sidelines, ends up calling in his own robots, and they end up joining the fray, including the Yes Bot for some reason. Unfortunately, though, as the Xiaolin monks and Panda Bubba's men continue fighting, well, the Star Nabi gets tossed around and lands right at the Yes Spot, which ends up overheating its systems and causes the robot to blow up, causing the entire warehouse to go up in flames, and for all excess Shen Gong Wu to just go flying, resulting in everyone getting knocked out, and even Raimundo saying that there was now a free-for-all, as everyone is just going around and grabbing whatever Shen Gong Wu they can, until eventually, in the midst of all this, Raimundo and Jack make a grab for the Longi kite. And so, at first, it looks like that Raimundo is going to call a Xiaolin showdown, only to find that Panda Bubba grabbed the tail end of the kite, and he declares a showdown trio, as apparently info on Xiaolin showdowns was also in the cheat sheet. As such, Panda Bubba ends up wagering the Fist of Tebigong, Jack Spicer ends up wagering, I think, the Tangle Webcomb. Yes, it was the Tangle Webcomb. And Raimundo ends up wagering the Eye of Dashi. And the contest, it's essentially a boat race. All three combatants are going to be getting on their boats, and they're going to be and they have to race to a finish line. Whoever gets to the finish line first wins, and the losers all go take a dip in the water. As such, with the rules set in place, the showdown is declared, and the docks transform into a big maze, with all three participants getting on their own boats and sailing right through. And unfortunately, it looks like the bad guys start ganging up on Raimundo, as when he tries going around, Jack Spicer ends up smashing the front of Raimundo's boat, and Panda Bubba ends up coming in and use the Fist of Tebigong to just end up try and smash it, and pretty much just capsizes Raimundo's boat, which would get him out of the running, but thankfully before he takes a dip in the water, he uses his wind element to send him flying into the air. Unfortunately, though, while that keeps him in the showdown, it doesn't exactly mean he's going to win, as both Panda Bubba and Jack Spicer are making a dash for the finish line. But Raimundo decides to use some of the apprentice training, which at this point I think he could easily learn, since this is kind of an easy one, to combine his wind element with the Eye of Dashi. And sure enough, He ends up using the powers of the wind and the lightning to create a tsunami wave, create a tidal wave, which Raimundo rides on using a piece of plywood. As such, this allows him to go sailing right past Panda Bubba and Jack Spicer, and thus he wins the showdown, winning the Longi Kite, the Tangle Webcomb, and the Fist of Tebigong. As such, the other Xiaolin monks end up patting Raimundo on the back, congratulating him. Even Omi admits that as a Xiaolin apprentice, he probably couldn't have done it better himself. And so everyone leaves while Jack Spicer gathers whatever remaining Wu he can, as he realizes that he kind of got robbed, since this is kind of a fraction of what he had. And Panda Bubba, well, he and his men get arrested by the police, so there you go. As such, the episode ends as we cut back to the Xiaolin Temple, and Master Feng is actually congratulating Raimundo for a job well done, and promoting him to Xiaolin Apprentice. I'll get to my thoughts on this later. But point is, with Raimundo now officially a Xiaolin Apprentice, this means that he and the other monks can now finally execute this new signature move, which in this case is the Dragon X Kume formation. Basically, from what I can gather about it, it's the Xiaolin monks unleashing the ultimate zenith of their elements as they all come together to form this one big fighting pose with Omi in the center, Kimiko on top of him, and Clay and Raimundo on both sides. And what I'm guessing this is supposed to do is supposed to essentially augment their power to augment their own natural elements and give them a little bit of a power boost. So either way, like I said, since all four of them are now Xiaolin apprentices, they can do this. Unfortunately, the honor doesn't really last this long, since Raimundo ends up thinking that since he's a Xiaolin apprentice, he should get some perks, which does annoy Master Feng to the point where he just walks away. So, yeah. So, sorry, hold on a second. Sorry about that coughing fit. But, yeah, my thoughts on the episode? I genuinely think it's good. With that said, I do think that there are a couple points in this episode that do legitimately annoy me. First is the hazing that Raimundo goes through. Now, I know that when you have a team dynamic and everyone on the team is considered friends, naturally, you're gonna poke fun at one another, and it's not like the Xiaolin monks haven't done that every once in a while. We've seen that in previous episodes. They like to, get under their skin and, poke and prod, just simple teasing that you do among friends. But this episode really kind of upped the ante as they emphasized over and over again that for whatever reason, the other Xiaolin monks look down on Raimundo because he's not a Xiaolin apprentice yet. Which I kind of find stupid, because the thing is, they've never shown this quality, they've never shown these attitudes before. And before you bring up the fact that, well, maybe they're looking down on Raimundo because they still see him as the odd man out since he betrayed them a few episodes prior. Well, to that I'd say okay, except they don't really have a baseline for that either. As in all the episodes prior to, or all the episodes that have succeeded Raimundo's betrayal, they have shown that they still trust Raimundo just as much as they did before his betrayal. They still see him as a member of the team, they still trust him, they still help him, and any shade they usually threw at him was because of Raimundo being Raimundo. Lazy, kind of stuck up, a little arrogant and all that. And yet, for whatever reason, they decide to get a little classist, so to speak, by essentially just looking down on him because, well, he's not an apprentice yet. So clearly he's not up to our level. And the thing, now, ultimately, to the defense of all the other monks, this is primarily coming from Omi. And as we've seen, Omi can be a bit arrogant. But the level of arrogance we see in this episode is even far beyond what we see from Omi normally. As throughout the episode, he's constantly chastising and talking down to Raimundo, treating him like he's not really treating him as if he really is just a cub or whatever, a junior student. It's like an adult talking down to a little kid, saying, "Oh, it's okay, don't worry, you don't have to worry about all that big stuff. The grown-ups are here right now." It's demeaning. And the thing is, the reason why I'm kind of grouping all the other Xiaolin monks into this, the other Xiaolin monks do not help. If anything, they add fuel to the fire. When the Xiaolin monks first arrive in Hong Kong, Raimundo at first says that, "Hey, it's okay, everyone. This place reminds me of my home in Rio. It's like the bad part of town there. This place is my element." And then Clay's like, "No offense, Rai, but then no offense, Rai, but you're not even good in your actual element." Again, that's kind of like pouring salt in the wound, especially since Raimundo is clearly still salty about what happened during his training. And again, the fault in that one was on Omi, since Omi was the one that kept butting in, even though Raimundo told him to back the hell off. It's like, that's not really fair. And then going to the point when Jack Spicer sets up his trap for the Xiaolin monks with Panda Bubba, Raimundo's the only one that actually makes sense. He's saying, look, doesn't it seem awfully convenient that Jack Spicer knows a way into Panda Bubba's compound and is offering to help us? I think this is a trap. And yet the other Xiaolin monks are like, well, we don't... They're like, well, it's probably the only thing we have. And while Raimundo does raise some genuinely good objections, everyone just kind of brushed them off. Only one point says, just step back. Let the apprentices deal with this. And literally no one sides with Raimundo. It's kind of a dick move, to be honest. It's just like, why are they looking down on him now for not being an apprentice? Especially since the only reason he's not an apprentice at this point was because he turned down the promotion when it was offered to him. It's just kind of dumb is what I'm saying, and kind of unnecessarily mean. Now, I get the idea is that maybe they need to put the pressure on him because Raimundo has to kind of get to that point where he feels like he can become an apprentice, and so he realizes that he has to be able to prove himself and show that he can be on that level. But again, it just feels like it's a little too mean-spirited is what I'm saying. And which brings me to, I think, the second fault of the episode, Raimundo being promoted to apprenticeship. Now, I'm not against Raimundo being promoted. In fact, I'll even compliment the episode for this. The episode does really showcase that Raimundo is still more than dedicated to wanting to prove himself to the Xiaolin monks and and Master Feng. He is still trying to put his best foot forward. He's still trying to actually put in the effort. He is still trying to be a part of the team, and throughout the entire episode, he does nothing that shows that he holds a grudge against anyone. And the only issues that he ever has with anyone is when they try throwing the fact that he's not an apprentice in his face, which I think anyone would get annoyed at that. And the thing is, by the end of the episode, I think there is a good arc there. As despite the fact that Raimundo was not an apprentice, he still proved himself, he still showed his dedication, and something that I genuinely liked in the episode was that Master Feng was not talking down to him. It's clear that by this point in the series, Master Feng kind of has learned his lesson when trying to teach Raimundo. As before, he tried to essentially let Raimundo come to his own conclusions on these things, which in turn resulted in Raimundo feeling alienated and feeling unappreciated. But in this episode, we actually see Master Feng giving Raimundo a little bit more leeway. It's not like he gives him special treatment, but by that same token, he is treating Raimundo with more respect. When Raimundo screws up the training earlier, he doesn't chastise him and says, you should think about how you failed. No, he instead says that was a good first effort, we'll try it again later. He doesn't say you did, he doesn't end up telling him, you did a good job, keep it up. No, it still says that, it was a good try, there's room for improvement, we can try again later. It doesn't feel like he's talking down to him, it doesn't feel like he's chastising him, it's actually him acknowledging that Raimundo put his best foot forward and that they can try again later. It's a nice way of still acknowledging the failure without making Raimundo look like an idiot. And it's further helped by the fact that the one that he volunteered to be Raimundo's test dummy, so to speak, was Omi, the one who was talking down to him prior to the test. So, that's a nice way of saying, go on, keep poking the bear, see what happens. So I like that. And then likewise, when Master Feng hears about the situation with Panda Bubba and Raimundo says he has a plan, Master Feng defers to Raimundo. Because as we've established, Master Feng does trust Raimundo. Like going back to the Citadel of Doom episode, where Raimundo officially joined back up with the Xiaolin Temple, the thing is, Master Feng, while clearly upset with Raimundo and even chastising him, did clearly trust Raimundo. And like I said, that episode showed that he did trust Raimundo enough to at least want to promote him. Like I said, that whole offering him the apprenticeship thing could partially be seen as a test to see if he would take it and so forth. But the thing is, the fact that he turned it down, and the fact that his turn to the dark side actually did help improve his character to the point where he realized, I can't just be in it for me anymore, it showed Master Feng that he probably was worthy. And like I said, up to this point, Master Feng was probably just waiting for Raimundo to see that. And the thing is, this entire episode is basically an arc for Raimundo about him wanting to prove himself, show that he isn't just something. And the thing is, yeah, he's proving it to the other monks since they talked down to him, But Master Feng also needs Raimundo to see it. And throughout the episode, you see that Master Feng is essentially gently pushing Raimundo into that mindset. He wants to see Raimundo succeed. He wants to help him succeed, but he does it in a way that's subtle and nice and respectful towards Raimundo, showing that he actually has learned from his mistakes with teaching Raimundo in the past, and now realizing that if he wants Raimundo to stay on board, then he has to teach him in a slightly different way. Not to the point where it's like alienating or like he's giving Raimundo special treatment. It's more like playing to what Raimundo needs to grow, as people tend to learn in different situations, and Raimundo definitely has his own way of learning and growing. With that all said, and this brings me back to the initial complaint I was talking about, Raimundo being promoted to the rank of apprenticeship this early on, I think is a misstep. Going back to how I thought it was a mistake in the Shard of Lightning episode to have Wuya come back so soon in the series, I think it was a misstep in order to have Raimundo suddenly be promoted to the rank of Xiaolin apprentices 3 episodes really, after he turned down the apprenticeship before. I think it would have been better if we had let him stay as a regular, as just a regular trainee, and maybe only had him be promoted halfway through the season. Show him still learning, still growing. Maybe show him still struggling as he tries to keep up with the other Xiaolin monks, learning similar methods to them, but still falling flat and still feeling like he needs to, work his way up. Have him go through more trials like what we had in this episode until he finally reaches that moment where he says, "I am good enough, I am strong enough, and I will show you." It's not, again, you could argue maybe that flies in the face of what he's trying to do, but by the same token, what we see in this episode, it's Raimundo essentially trying to show everyone that he is still trustworthy and that he isn't just some low rank that they can talk down to. Because the thing is, you're gonna have to give him some respect. And yeah, before you say Raimundo is still trying to be selfless, again, basic respect. I think anyone in his position wouldn't appreciate being talked down to as if he was a child who just got chastised at the end of class. So I think at the very least, I feel like they should have spread this out more instead of having it happen so early on in the season. As such, I do think it was a misstep for him to be promoted so early, as it doesn't really allow enough time to let the whole he's a rank under everyone else sink in. And maybe that's because they wanted to get everyone on the same rank again, especially since they introduced the Dragon X Kume formation, which I like. It's a nice little way of It's a nice way of essentially showcasing that since they're all at equal rank, they're now at the point where they can finally be taught this technique. But at the same time, I feel like we could have waited a little bit. That we could have waited somewhat longer before we had Raimundo actually get promoted. So to that, yeah, I think it's a problem. I do genuinely think it's a problem. I think it really should have taken more time for Raimundo to become a Xiaolin apprentice instead of just 3 episodes after he turned it down initially. So yeah, that's another problem with the episode. With that said, I still think the episode is really enjoyable. Case in point, let's talk about this episode's villain of the week, Panda Bubba. Like I said, despite his honestly silly name, the dude really does work as a villain. And now, the thing is, unlike Jack Spicer, he doesn't have aspirations for world domination. In fact, he openly admitted at one point in the episode that the only reason he wants a Shen Gong Wu is to rule the entire Hong Kong criminal underworld, which even Jack gets upset about because, hey, that's not really someone with vision. With that said, he's clearly a smart cookie. He's, like I said, he's big, intimidating, he's got a gruff voice, and despite his silly name and panda and the fact that he looks like a panda, the dude is a pretty competent villain and comes across as very intimidating and smart. When he realizes the Shen Gong Wu's power, he utilizes them to his own advantage. He plans for Jack coming back and works around it. When he gets upset, he sounds like someone you don't want to cross. And likewise, while he does end up working with Jack in order to get to the other Xiaolin warriors, he knows fully well that Jack's probably going to betray him, so he betrays him first so he can get the other Shen Gong Wu. And when he gets he gets upset. He actually does come across as a legitimately good villain. Definitely have his share of sillier moments, but not really to the point where he's out like Cloud Cuckoo Lander. It's just more like him being kind of smug and full of himself, like when he challenges Jack and Raimundo to his showdown trio, as he's just holding the tail end of the Longi kite and says, "This was on your cheat sheet too," before just wagging his eyebrows and then just looking between both of them. It's, again, I just kind of love that. It's nice. It's just kind of fun seeing him just yeah. So again, I like him. He's cool. So I did. He's cool, and I like him as a villain of the week. Like I said, the conflict with Raimundo. Well, part of it does get to my goat. I think it does work well in at least showcasing his character and kind of building up from what we had before, with Raimundo essentially trying to prove himself to the other Xiaolin warriors and show that he isn't just a random cub, that he can actually be someone, that he actually can be on their level, and that he doesn't need to be talked down to. I like it. I like the way he goes about it, and quite frankly, that's another aspect of the episode that I love. And the thing, again, that works, no one's stupid. I know it's a weird thing to kind of point out here, but this episode, I think, does work better, especially in comparison to last week's episode, which, like I said, the only reason that plan worked in the episode was because of a bunch of coincidences and contrivances. In this episode, things did at least work better, as in this case, Panda Bubba learning about the Shen Gong Wu at least worked in the context it was given. The plan with the Xiaolin monks, yeah, well, it did rely on them kind of being stupid. At least did kind of work to their advantage. And in the case of Panda Bubba, like I said, he was a competent villain, and the finale and Raimundo even trying to think of a counter plan, I think, was smart and creative, especially since he utilized the Shen Gong Wu the Xiaolin warriors did have to his advantage. Again, I like it. It's nice. So with that, I like it. It's nice. In that regard, it does still work. The plot at least moves at a decent pace. I like the action. Panda Bubba's at least a good villain. It does have some good twists and turns, and while story-wise, I do have my own faults with the episode, like with how Raimundo was constantly talked down to, or them promoting him to apprenticeship too soon. I think at the very least, for what we got in the episode, I think it's enjoyable. We get some nice fun stuff with Jack Spicer. The action is, of course, kick-ass. It's nice seeing Raimundo's character continue to be built up on from previous episodes. I like what we said. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to think of anything else I liked. I think really I just kind of talked it out. Point is, good character stuff for Raimundo, good action, good villain of the week, a good showdown, and overall a good finale. Even if, again, I think it wasn't a good idea to promote Raimundo so soon. So overall, I think that Pandatown is a good episode. Definitely one that probably should have happened later in the season, but for what it is, still enjoyable in its own right. So yeah, I think that's really all I have to say. I thank you for watching. I'm Samuel Johnson, and I hope to see you next week. Take care.